Silence! Hello, Paul.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to From Pillar to Post. I'm Joe White. Let me turn myself back up here. Here we go. Okay. That right there, what you just heard, is the Sanford & Son theme done in the style of Mario Paint. I found this guy. It's well over 5 years old, so it's nothing new to people probably. Let's see, what else is this guy? His name on YouTube is KnightW11 and then V2, and he does music. He's a musician, but he also does things in the style of, like, if anybody ever grew up with a Super Nintendo, they made this video game called Mario Paint, where it was essentially to sell a mouse that was made for the Super Nintendo. It came with a mouse. It came with this mouse pad. I think Mario Paint was one of the only 2 games to use the mouse. You could use the mouse also in other things like Doom and stuff like that, but Mario Paint was specifically made to be used with this mouse. And one of the things that they had like they had a paint thing, of course, like a coloring book. They had a fly swatter game where you were the fly swatter and you point and click the different flies and you swatted them. And then they had this music maker, and it was called Mario Paint Music. Well, about in the early 2000s, or late 2000s, somebody decided to take that program and put it online for free. Separate of the Mario Paint, it's not an emulator. It's not. They basically took the coding for this paint, or for this music program, within Mario Paint, and put it out there. And there people have done some, amazing things with this thing. I mean, like, let's see here. I'm trying to think of a good one here to show you guys, because there are some bangers that this guy does. Let's see here. What's a good one that I could play for you guys? I'm scrolling through them. Here you go. Here's Turn Up the Trouble for Mr. Kennedy that this guy's done. He's done like over 400 different themes, between WWE and TNA and WCW and even some New Japan things. But this is the one that he did for Mr. Kennedy back in the day. Here we go. So you get the basic idea there. There's that's that one. He did. Let's see here. He did Randy Orton's Voices theme. Here you go. This is a good one. So there you have it. That's voices done in a 1993 Mario Paint Super Nintendo program. It's called Mario Paint Composer. Maybe we'll drift off the break with one of those here in the when we take our break here. But I wanted to talk to you a bit today about. Obviously, you see Max Caster on your screen. We'll get to Max Caster. But I want to talk about Bray Wyatt first. And
do you want me?
Here, I'm going to play something for you. Now, there's a podcast that Conan, who occasionally does work for AEW, he manages the Lucha Brothers sometimes. And he does a podcast with, of all people, called Disco Inferno. And Disco Inferno started it, and it's called Keeping It 100 is what they call it. They have a guy on there this week, this clip was just posted a little while ago. As a matter of fact, I'm recording this on August the 11th, and it just came out maybe an hour ago. And I heard it, and if what this dude is saying is true, and that's a big if, he raises a lot of good points, even if it is just pure speculation. So they had a guy named Adam Hughes. He's some British guy. I've never heard of him before. Apparently he's some British wrestling insider, and you know how I feel about British wrestling fans. But anyway, he claims to know Bray Wyatt. He claims to have spoken to Bray Wyatt quite a bit. And as you'll hear here, him and, they go off on the little tangents, but they kind of keep it here in this 11-minute clip that we're going to go through. One of the things that they say here, I find a real hard time in believing, but we'll break it down. And this is the real reason for Bray Wyatt's backstage WWE issues. Now, I don't know who this Adam Hughes is. I know he does a podcast. One of the podcasts he did that I listened to on his channel, he was piss drunk while doing it. He sounds nothing like what he does here in this clip. I believe this guy is a follower of Vince Russo as well, so take that for what you will. But this guy, he's gonna spit a lot of shit here. One of the things I have to call bullshit on. But let's take a listen to this clip, and we'll break it down as we go along here.
To get into Bray Wyatt, I would need like about 5 minutes. I would need like 5 minutes to tell you why not.
Go ahead.
Let's hear it. So me and Austin actually spoke to Bray Wyatt in a hotel gym in the end of 2019, and he's a champion at the time. So Austin and Bray have a relationship where Austin was the first kid to get a photo with him, and Bray always remembers that. And
I'm guessing here that this Austin is this guy's son. So let's continue.
And it's a continual pattern of photos on a year-to-year basis. If I can bring that up, I'm only mentioning it because I think it's relevant to what I'm about to say. So also, like, you always get guys on certain podcasts that dispute everything you say. You guys here, like, whereas Russo's got a very much like Russo audience who don't watch AEW. You guys are more split in the middle. Like, you do have like a cool audience, but you also have like some like marks from Meltzer's, from like who buy the Observer and cross over. Because like sometimes when I do this show, I do get some for some marks for certain things I say. So I'm gonna just like talk about what I'm saying here. So this is okay. That's the newest.
Apparently, he's showing these guys photos of him and this kid taking pictures with Bray Wyatt to prove that he's had contact with him over the years. So I admit, he's probably talked to Bray Wyatt. He's probably spoken to Bray Wyatt on numerous occasions. But let's dive deper here.
And that's the year before.
So he knows, like, so he's known him for a while.
Yeah, so that's the year before that.
Okay.
You see Austin's getting smaller.
Really small there, yeah.
And that's 3-year-old.
Yeah.
Right. So that's how. So if he spots him, they'll talk. But this is the time where he was talking to me, because I think he's like over the years through small conversations he's figured out what I do, etc. And he was just like opening up, saying like this is not what I want it to be. Hell in a Cell was so bad. Like at this point he was the champion. He was going. They don't understand what I'm saying. They don't understand what I want this to be. He goes, well, he said to me, he goes, well, one person doesn't understand. He goes, I don't want to say, he goes, I take back what I said about them not understanding. He goes, we got a lot of really great young writers that know what know what I want it to be. He goes, but one guy doesn't understand what this is supposed to be.
Now, there's a lot of speculation here we could draw here from this as to who that one guy is. It could be one of the writers, it could be Bruce Pritchard, or the likely culprit is Vince McMahon.
So, I mean, he's telling me, yeah, he has a relationship with Austin, but I'm a relative stranger at this point. But, you know, he wants to communicate to me that this is like, this is not what his idea is. It's almost like he's defending it to a random person. Like, especially with me working in the wrestling media, perhaps, you know, wanting to get the message out to me that this is not what it's supposed to be. Almost like he wants me to report it. So I found that interesting, and I did report it. I said it straight away on my podcast that week.
Now, I will say that some wrestlers, it's not the first time that people have done this. They will go out of their way to talk to wrestling journalists and get shit started if they think it can change things. Well, it didn't in this case.
It wasn't said to me to keep it private. So moving on from that, and knowing that he's not happy with the character development, and he's not happy with what they're doing with his character. We already know that. That's already in the bank. Second of all, he left his wife for JoJo. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but there was heat on him for that. And the WWE were dragged into court because his wife was disputing Bray Wyatt's earnings, and the WWE had to legally go to court, and it was embarrassing for them, where they had to actually send somebody to court to give like a full, basically like it's called a fact-finding hearing.
Okay, so I have to call bullshit on this one. And we're going to go into it deep here. This is the one that really kind of made me tilt my head to the side and go, this fucking wanker has no idea, this fucking yank has no idea what the fuck he's talking about. Because he doesn't live in America, he's not familiar with American law and American taxes and the way earnings are reported, blah, 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 blah. So it is true, he did leave his then wife for JoJo, who was ring announcing at the time. And I'm assuming that when you divorce someone and you're making that much fucking money, the one that you cheated on wants her fair share. The old, there's an old song by Jerry Reed. That's right, the guy who played the enemy coach in The Water Boy. He played Snowman and Smokey and the Bandit. He's also a real famous country singer. He wrote a song called She Got the Gold Mine, I Got the Shaft. So that's kind of what's happening to Bray here. You know, the ex-wife wants her gold mine. She wants that alimony. So she's going to go to court. And the judge is going to go, well, Mrs. Rotunda, we understand that you want alimony. Yes, sir, I do. And we understand that you were this woman probably did not have a job, or if she did, it paid peanuts compared to what Mr. Rotunda is paying here. So, Mr. Rotunda, since you got your wife accustomed to that lifestyle, we are going to dictate that you pay her alimony. Usually alimony runs for a certain number of years, if not for life. Hulk Hogan is still paying alimony payments to Linda, probably. Anyway, so that's how it goes down usually. If you can prove that you got accustomed to a certain lifestyle thanks to your spouse's or then spouse's job or, you know, whatever have you, they will allot, usually it's the females, they will allot them alimony. And when they do the alimony, they got to do due diligence. They got to do due diligence here. So they got to figure out, okay, how much did the then Mrs. Rotunda make? We're going to compare that against what Mr. Rotunda makes or has made over the last year. Usually they go by the previous year's tax returns. And we'll divvy it out like that. And if anything drastic changes over the years, just like with child support, if you get a pay increase or a pay decrease, you can go and resubmit things and they can hash it all up, toss it all up, if you will, and go from there. But generally, that's what happens. They treat alimony just like they do pretty much child support. So what they're going to do is they're going to request a copy of the previous year's tax returns for Mrs. Rotunda, if she has any. And now the Mr. Rotunda, oh, you work for WWE. According to your contract with them, can we have a copy of the contract? Yes, sir, go ahead. Okay. Reading through the contract, both attorneys in these cases read the contracts. The judge reads the contracts. The judge goes, well, says here you're a private contractor. Yes, sir, I am. I work this deal. I have a downside. The lawyer's going to explain all this. Yes, Mr. Rotunda, he works for World Wrestling Entertainment, and he makes what's called a downside guarantee, which in this video, which we're going to say here, they do a downside guarantee, which is claimed to be $1 million a year. And after he makes that $1 million, they stop paying him. The only pay that he will make after that $1 million a year is anything that they pay him for wrestling, anything that they pay him for his merchandise, any royalties that are due to him, home video, which with the network we know now that there is none, etc. And WWE keeps track of all that. WWE or any private contractor should keep record of all that. So what they'll do is, if WWE does things properly, and I'm imagining that they do, at the end of the year, they will do what is called a 1099 form. It's a federal tax form that basically says this is what Mr. Rotunda made throughout this year. From January 1st of year X till December 31st of year X, this is what he made. This is what we cut him checks for. Now, whether they have it broken up into this was for merchandise, this is this is this. I've seen copies of WWE Superstars pay stubs. They're not that hard to find. They break them down like this. This is what you got for your shows. Here's your downside. Here's your merch. Okay? So they send him a 1099. That's all the judge needs. The 1099 and where you filed your quarterlies and your ending tax returns. That's all the judge needs for this is your tax returns. That's what they go by. So the judge is going to say, give me your 1099 for year X. Give me the taxes that you filed for the year X. And we'll go from there. That's what they're going to use. 9 times out of 10. So the fact that WWE had to drag a lawyer into court and they had to ask them, that may have happened, but I find it very hard to believe because I used to be an independent contractor. I worked for a company called Prime Inc., driving a truck for a living. I leased a truck from them. Okay? I was not a company driver. I was responsible for the truck payment, any upkeep work that they did on the truck. Even though it was their shop, I was responsible for paying their shop to do the work. Granted, they charged a far less labor rate than most truck stops or dealerships would. So truck payment, fuel, incidentals. Also, keep in mind that I could write off anything that I pretty much wanted to. My GPS was a write-off. My phone bill was a write-off. My PlayStation 4 that I bought because I could get news and weather information on it was a write-off. I mean, clothes, socks, underwear, shirts, pants, blah, blah, blah. Write-offs. Any money that I spent on scale tickets, write-offs. My truck payment, my fuel payment, my repair payment, all of that were write-offs to get that tax number down to where I could get a refund. And I got a refund that year. Oh, did I ever get a good refund that year. So, actually, I take that back. I ended up owing the federal government $200 for that. So, it was the year before that when I was actually a company driver with another company that I got a good refund. Anyway. At the end of the year, I paid my quarterlies. My accounting firm that I had hired said, here, you got to pay this much in your quarterly estimates. I would pay that. And at the end of the year, I got from Prime Inc. a 1099 showing this is what we paid you. Now, on that 1099, they do not break it down for you because that's your accountant's job and your job to keep pay stubs and everything, keep track of your stuff. you break down from that 1099 and you send to the IRS along with any proof that they may require, this is what I spent on my, if I'm Bray Wyatt, I'm going, okay, I spent this much on my ring gear. I spent this much on my cars if I have to rent a car. I spent this much in hotel rooms if I'm forced to get my own hotel room. I spent this much in food. I think they allot you a $30 a day food allowance, per diem it's called. The federal government does. It may be lower than them, but for me, for truck drivers, it was $33 a day. So I'm assuming for them it may be like 25, 20. Any kind of clothes he's bought, suits, jackets, ties, the clothes for the Firefly Funhouse, unless that was provided by WWE's wardrobe department, he had to buy all that. Unless WWE paid for anything. If he's got receipts for all that, he could show that on his 1099, file his tax return, and there you go. That's what the judge is going to go off of. So all these people talking about this guy talking about how WWE had to drag a woman into court, had to sit there and do a fact-finding mission. What are you, Mayor Quimby? We're going on a fact-finding mission to find that out, No. They're going to look at the guy and go, give us your tax returns. So this is my first red flag for this guy. Oh, they had to go with a fact-finding test. No, give us your tax returns. If you don't have your tax returns, we could definitely subpoena them from the IRS. And then we're going to tell them, hey, he may have not filed his taxes last year. Continuing on.
Which is what she requested in terms of giving, full disclosure as to...
She can request that all she wants to. The judge is probably liable to say no. Unless this judge is a female-oriented judge, which I would not be surprised because in courts nowadays, and it's always been this way, they favored women more than they favored men. It's just how it is. They could have said, I don't know what the guy made last year. He kept all that hidden from me. The first thing they're going to still ask for is his tax returns and his 1099s and his 1040s or whatever he had. And they're going to go from there.
What his earnings were so that she would get the right settlement.
Okay, just let me cut you off here. Conan, that's interesting because remember we talked about this and we said one of the things he got rid of because he was dating one of the employees. You said that happens all the time. We know that, but this.
Yeah, I didn't think that would matter. Yeah,
right. But obviously it did kind of.
So, the fact that him dating JoJo, having heat and everything, I don't think him dating JoJo was the problem. I think that if he did leave his wife, and his wife demanded that a WWE attorney go into court, that's public information. Unless those records are sealed. But WWE doesn't want people to know that, hey, we're getting dragged into the divorce legalities of our superstars, of our employees, our contractors, if you will. That's where I think WWE could have had some friction. But again, I doubt that even happened. Not when you can submit those tax returns. It's very easy to do.
Matter in this case,
yeah.
It sounds like.
And all WWE did was probably walk into the court and go, here is Mr. Rotunda's 1099. And maybe even here's a copy of his pay stubs that we gave him for the last 12 months. Thank you, goodbye. It's all there, black and white, goodbye.
Right,
Billy, did he marry her?
Yeah, I think he's married to her now. He's got 2 kids with her.
Yeah, I knew he had kids with her, yeah.
Now you can put that on your checklist, Joe. Joe keeps up with who's dating who in the business, as if some chick broke up with somebody, maybe he could slide in or something.
Right,
but go ahead, Billy.
Podcaster.
Right.
Well, this resulted in him being moved down to he was on the free show for WrestleMania. He was in the Battle Royal for WrestleMania, and then they just took him off TV entirely. And they were thinking about releasing him then.
Wow.
But they didn't. So he came back with.
If they did that, if WWE did that because of a divorce hearing, it's pretty fucking petty and stupid. Anyway, moving on. But then again, you're talking about the actual Bray Wyatt character at this point, not the Fiend character. He was getting kind of stale at that point. So who knows? I don't buy that for a minute, really, that because you dragged our attorneys and we had to pay for an attorney to come to your divorce proceedings, which 9 times out of 10, I would not be surprised if WWE looked at Bray Wyatt and said, because you dragged us into this, we're going to make you pay for our lawyer fees. But because you did all this, which nobody knows about until, 4 or 5 years later, we're gonna knock you down to the Battle Royal and WrestleMania. Really? Come on. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, don't get me wrong, but it just... meh.
This brand new character, which we all know, and it was successful. It was the number one merchandise seller above, going toe to toe with Becky. But once Becky left, it was undisputed the number one merchandise seller. Now, when Meltzer turns around and says that this was a cost-cutting measure, that isn't possible.
Now, I will say this coming up makes sense to me. This makes total sense to me, guys, and we'll dissect it. But take a listen.
Because the guy's on a $1 million downside guarantee contract and got paid $2.5 million last year.
How does this guy know? Has he seen the 1099s? Has he seen the tax returns from Bray Wyatt?
So if he got $2.5 million, $1 million of that would have been merchandise, and these guys only earn about 10% of their merchandise. So if the WWE sold $10 million worth of Bray Wyatt merchandise, and he's on a $1 million contract,
They made money.
Explain to me how Dave Meltzer's calling that a cost-cutting measure.
Right. Well, that's probably what they're telling him.
Right. So that's another incorrect story from Dave.
What he's saying there makes total sense. Aside from the numbers maybe skewed off, but he was a top merchandise seller. When I went to Backlash Night of Champions about 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago maybe. Let's see, when was Night of Champions in Charlotte, North Carolina? Hold on. Let's see, get the years right here. This would have been... Hold on here. I'm trying to find it, guys. That's the one in Houston, Texas. That one's at Indianapolis, Indiana. Sorry, 2017, they were in Boston. 2018, they didn't have one. 2019 was in Charlotte, North Carolina. So it was 2019. Looking at the results here, was The Fiend on that show? I believe this is where he came back. Yeah. So this is in the main event. Seth Rollins defeated the Universal Champion, defended against Braun Strowman. After the match, Rollins performed 3 stomps on Strowman. Rollins performed a pedigree and a 4th stomp to retain the title. After the match, Bray Wyatt appeared and attacked Rollins with a Sister Abigail and the Mandible Claw. Because I remember that. It was awesome. My kid marked the hell out. And when I went to that show, they sold a shit ton of Bray Wyatt merchandise. My son still has a Let Me In shirt from that show. I spent money on it. So I can believe every bit of it when they say that this dude was moving as much, if not more, merchandise than Becky Lynch was at the time. Because Becky Lynch was white hot during this time too. So I kind of believe that, but the fact that you're saying, oh, he's making $2 million and actually pointing out actual figures, I find that hard to believe.
So the real issues behind here were there's a lot of mental health and I need time off. So there's already, we know about character disagreements. His wife had a baby in May 2019 and in May 2020. So he took a little bit of time off for the birth and the end of the pregnancy. Then he wanted time off at the end of the year for 3 reasons. Number 1, he's got a 6-month-old. Number 2, she's heavily pregnant. She's 6 months into her pregnancy. And number 3, he knew up front that his best friend was going to die. So some of these guys, they...
This is the part that kind of makes me sick. Well, it doesn't make me sick. I'll change that. It kind of... I could see where a lot of people are going to get a lot of backlash on this. And it's been well documented by Brody Lee's wife that while Brody was at the Mayo Clinic pretty much on the ventilators and life support, that, you know, Biggie and Bray Wyatt came up there to see him. So this part is factual. Does it play into the mental health aspect? It could, but let's continue here.
New inside information in that they're actually able to visit the Mayo.
Brody?
Yeah, they were able to like visit the Mayo Clinic. Biggie and Bray Wyatt were able to were visitors who were kept in the loop about that entire thing. So a few guys at AEW, including Tony Khan, would have known 3, 4, 5 weeks before that happened that was going to happen, because that had passed the point where he was going to make any kind of recovery. So that's why he wanted to take that time off, because he had a lot of shit going on.
Well, now 3 to 4 to 5 weeks before he died, he was kind of, if you go back and listen to the AEW Unrestricted that they did with Brody Lee's wife, she talks about how he was getting better. And then things took another turn for the worse about 2 weeks before he died. So 4 or 5 weeks doesn't exactly line up, but I'll give this guy that leeway here. Let's continue.
Look at like one pregnancy or one newborn is bad enough, but then to have one and then to have another one due immediately after. I mean, she got pregnant, gave birth, and then got pregnant again
3 months later. Yeah.
As soon as and I don't know if this is scientific fact, but I don't think you can even get pregnant again for the first 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's 6 to 9 weeks
After you give birth. But I think as soon as she could, she did. So
they even tell you do not have sex for 6 to 9 weeks. So Bray Wyatt being the genetic jackhammer there.
He wanted time off to deal with all of that. When he came back for WrestleMania as planned, he wasn't ready to come back. He told him he wasn't ready to come back. Vince McMahon decided he didn't look ready to come back. So that whole Orton thing didn't make sense to a lot of people, but it did when you know the background of the story.
That kind of makes sense there, because if you can remember, you know, in that WrestleMania match, he paid tribute to Brody Lee by doing the finger kiss and the yeah thing and all that. So I kind of believe that he wasn't ready to come back yet. You're talking maybe Brody died in January, WrestleMania is in April. Some people take deaths of their best friends in different ways. Now, the children thing, the mental health thing from having 2 kids, dude, that's your own fault. Sorry. That's your own fault. It's like what is he having? Postpartum depression? Come on. But the Brody Lee thing, compacted on all the other shit onto the pregnancy stuff, it can add up to a guy. I'm not saying he's a total snowflake, but maybe he should have gotten some help or something. I don't know.
Now, when he comes back, when he plans to come back here for SummerSlam, and they pitch a storyline to him, and he doesn't want to do it, at this point, this is why they decide to do the release. Now, I always, as I said on Vince's show, Drew McIntyre should never, ever have taken that sword, because he changed from a legit person that got over to a gimmick. You go backwards. You only take on a gimmick if you're not over, but he's already over. So he didn't need that sword.
He's not lying about that.
And the fact that he gets up at 7 a.m. every day and does media for them for 5 hours, he had worked himself in a position where he could have said, no, I don't want to have this sword.
Yeah, he did. But then again, with all the releases happening, do you really want to question storylines at this point? No, everybody's expendable there. The only 2 people in that company that are not expendable are probably Roman Reigns and, well, John Cena's going to fuck off whenever he wants to fuck off. But, you know, besides Roman Reigns, everybody in that company is expendable. Roman Reigns and the Usos. Why? Because they want to keep Roman happy. Because Roman right now is their big money draw. Everybody else in that company could go at the drop of a hat tomorrow, and Vince would not give a damn. As we discussed on one of my previous videos, it's a business.
Because I knew he wasn't, keen on it from the start. But he didn't. Bray Wyatt is the opposite. He's had time off for mental health issues, time off for pregnancies, time off for births, time off throughout most of 2020 and 2021, and he's clashed heads with them creatively. So when you come back after they've given you every single minute that you wanted off, and even extended your time off when you weren't ready for WrestleMania, how can you have a creative clash with them?
So we've gone to, I met him at the airport, at the gym, at a hotel gym, and he's best friends with this kid and all this mess, to totally throwing the guy under the bus, saying they've given the guy everything they wanted and he still says no, so how can they not release him? That's why I say this guy could be, this Adam Hughes seems sketchy to me.
Like, you can't do it. So as much as everybody's going to take Bray Wyatt's side, and we saw how that was spun on the internet, and they have fired a lot of people, you have to go 50-50 here and say, look, they gave him a lot of leeway.
He's not, I'll tell you that. He's not lying. He's not lying. Everybody goes, how could you do this? How could you do this? The same people, these wrestling websites making money off of this shit. The same people who are going, why would you do this? Poor Bray Wyatt, mental health. These are the same people who were bashing this character a year and a half ago, saying, he squashes everybody, nobody has a chance against him, he's ruining everybody's character, blah, 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 blah. Everything, all the Firefly Funhouse stuff is stupid, and all this and that. So these wrestling journalists, again, like a Sean Ross Sapp, the Solomon, Raj Giri, Glenn Rubenstein, who we'll get to here in a minute, all these guys who go, man, it's a dark day, Bray Wyatt got released. No, you look at that as money for you, because people are going to go to your websites and your YouTube channels, and you can plug your Patreon, and you can plug Manscaped and your sponsors. You're going to make money. Let's continue here.
They gave him a lot of time off. They really did play ball with this guy. And if you want to get your creative ideas across, you have to actually be there. You can't just win when you want time off and win when you want the creative done your way. Yeah, I have no doubt in my mind that Vince McMahon is less creative than Bray Wyatt, and Bray Wyatt's ideas are better. But you have to actually be there to get those across. And if he's not going to be there, he hasn't got a leg to stand on when he's having conversations in July and trying to tell them what he wants to do on TV when they want him to lose to Bobby Lashley. So,
let's dissect that a little bit here. You have to be there. You have to be there. You don't have to be there to negotiate what you want to do as far as storylines go. They could do conference calls, emails, text messages, Zoom meetings, Skype calls, FaceTime. There's a lot of different ways you can have a meeting. Now, if you ask CM Punk, none of those are valid. But you got to show some, I will agree, you got to kind of show some initiative and play ball. You can't sit there and go, I need time off for this kid. Let's not forget Vince McMahon is a guy who told Vince Russo, you're making enough money, why don't you hire a nanny? Vince McMahon usually doesn't care. So the fact that Vince is giving him time off to go have a kid, time off to grieve for his best friend, time off to go have another kid, and now time off because, I'm just not ready. It's a lot of give without any take. And let's be honest here. These guys, they're wrestlers, yes, but they're money. They're employees. They're money. Every day that Bray Wyatt is not on TV, even if it's doing something stupid, that's 1 to 2 to 10 to 30 to 50 less T-shirts we're selling. Now that they're bringing fans back, that's 1 to 2 to 10 to 100 tickets we're not selling because this guy can clearly move tickets. This guy puts asses in the seats if he's booked correctly. Hell, even if he's not booked correctly. So, again, everybody wants to trash Vince McMahon and trash the WWE, but they forget that it's the wrestling business, the entertainment business, the sports entertainment business. Let's continue on here.
That's the thing is Vince, we called this weeks ago, is that, bro, Vince is an old school guy that shows up for work every week and everything. He doesn't have time for like this. He doesn't have time for the guy that needs time to miss time off, miss work, and do this. I don't like my career. You know,
the guy tore both his quads and showed up for work, bro.
Yeah, and it's like
they're not lying. You got to kind of respect that in some ways.
They're looking. You're in that room. You got guys like Nick Khan and everything. We got 207 contracted wrestlers. We don't need this guy. Let's bring somebody else. It's like you're only gonna get addition by subtraction on that show. If like the feeder system. Those guys they're paying these people to train that are never gonna get on TV unless you get rid of some of the people that you've had on TV.
And that's like that in any wrestling business. That's why I think Cody Rhodes may be stepping down for a while. Yes, he's filming the whatever show and the Redneck Got Talent show or whatever that thing is they're doing on TNT. And, maybe the Young Bucks could step back. Kenny Omega could be stepping back to allow guys like, CM Punk and Daniel Bryan and maybe Bray Wyatt. Buddy Murphy could be coming over there. Malachi Black is there now. Granted, these aren't AEW guys and they're not younger guys, but they're still fresh faces on your television show. The reason why Cody needs to be replaced, that's a whole nother fucking segment entirely. When he booked himself into a corner to never to be able to win that damn championship, that was the end of him in that company.
Go ahead.
Yeah, let me just say this, and I like the way you put that in context, Bill. It makes a lot of sense, and I think you are correct. But I would say this. It must be mega frustrating for him, albeit everything you said, and you do make a very valid point, that he got over with that family gimmick big time, and he could have been a humongous star, and they dropped the ball once. Somehow he was able to survive that, recuperate, resuscitate himself, and come up with a great – I loved the Fire Funhouse because it was – out of the box and all that. Once they brought in Alexa and the throwing up and the Lily and all that they lost me.
I will say that the second they killed that character off completely and burned him alive and all that, that was stupid. That may have been the tipping point for him. That may have been the tipping point because it's like, dude, you lit me on fucking fire and killed me. What more can I do? I'm not the Undertaker.
But I thought that was great idea, and for a creative person like him, must be very frustrating to see them it up. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But, you do make a very valid point. And the other thing I will say, me and Disco are bringing this up because I thought Drew McIntyre was putting on the performances of his life as a wrestler and on the mic, and he looks mega joke.
So they go in there to talk a little bit more about Drew McIntyre, but that's the gist of the clip, is that, there you have it. That is one of the possibilities, and one of the insiders is saying. Everybody Fightful and everybody came out and said this is not due to mental health. This is not due to mental health. It's budget cuts. How can you why would I cut a guy who's making me, like they said, he's only making maybe about 10% of the merchandise. So if he's making $1 million, they're making $10 million on merchandise. Why would I cut a guy making me $10 million in merchandise between the puppets and all this mess? But at the same time, yeah, you're making me millions upon millions of dollars in merchandise, but when Becky Lynch comes back, she's going to make me that much too. That's what they're banking on. You know, I mean, is the $10 million that we're making off the guy a year really that worth the headache of this guy going, I'm depressed, I got kids, I got fucking, my friend died. Dude, welcome to the real world is what Vince is probably telling this guy. And then we give you the time off that you request, which WWE does not do that often. You know, CM Punk said during that StarCast interview, holy shit, people are getting time off now. You know? It doesn't happen often, but yeah. They give you the time off to, you know, get your shit straight, get your head on straight. Here's what we got for your return, and you shoot it down. What the fuck am I supposed, you know, if I'm running a business, what am I supposed to think? This guy doesn't want to play ball. He's done. I hate to make reference to it, but he's Simone Biles of the wrestling world right now, man. My head ain't in it. My head is not in the game. You're not wanting to do what I want you to do. So WWE, you know, said, if you can't get your head back in the game, we're going to go to an alternate. We're going to leave you alone. We're going to get rid of you. And guess who their alternate is? Alexa Bliss. Maybe Bray Wyatt saw the writing on the wall when they were doing the Alexa storyline, and maybe that's what he didn't want to do. Gonna take a break. When we come back here, we are going to when we come back here, we're gonna talk about Max Caster. We're gonna talk about CM Punk today. You're Gene, take it from pillar to post. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hulk Hogan didn't even register.
He's got her! He's gonna nail her! A puncher!
Oh, this is cool. Hey, I want to check this out. Cool. Hey, can I try that? Hey, hey. You're not my friend.
I'm just kidding with you.
Hey man, who's that weird dude you're talking to, bro?
My friends are here. Oh, cool. So, see you later.
G.I. Joe.
Post. Mr. Perfect's theme. I'm digging these Mario Paint things. I don't know why, man. Nostalgia is a bitch. Anyway. Max Caster. We want to talk about Max Caster. I did a video last night. Thank you all for those who watched it. Please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. Like this video actually too. Max Caster has reportedly, I haven't seen much about it today, have not gotten any official confirmation, and with them being a private company, I don't know if we'll get official confirmation. Max Caster has purportedly, according to Ringside News and backed up by Wrestling Inc., has been suspended for 2 months without pay. God, this Drake Wirtz guy is fucking stupid. Anyway. So he's suspended without pay, required to go through sensitivity training. Well, last night NXT aired and Wrestling Inc. Shout out to the guys at Wrestling Inc. for this particular thing. They do a post show for NXT every week where they review it. And they were talking about the Max Caster suspension. Glenn Rubenstein, who you're going to hear come off as a complete snowflake, surprisingly, on this. He's a complete fucking SJW idiot. Was joined by Alfred Konua? I'm sorry, dude, if I butchered your name. And he's joined by someone named Isla. I mean, so they're talking about the Max Caster situation. And something surprised me here. And it makes me wonder, because in cancel culture and pop culture nowadays, all white men are evil. They bring up John Cena and how John Cena used to spit shit like this back in the day. It makes me wonder, if John Cena were to spit something like what Max Caster did, would he be vilified? He would probably be vilified more. And it makes me wonder if this guy would have the same opinion. If it was John Cena, a white dude out there spitting this, instead of Max Caster, who is of, quote unquote of color. I hate that term, but he's not white, folks. How about we put that? He's not Caucasian. He's not a cracker like me, okay? He not be no honky. But anyway, see, I could say that because I'm white. Go figure. But it makes me wonder, if it was a white dude spitting this shit, would he'd probably be fired if it was a white rapper gimmick. But let's not touch that, because it wasn't a white dude. It was Max Caster who said it. We're going to pick this up. Glenn Rubenstein, Alfred Kauna, and Isla, who is your typical, all these wrestling websites who do YouTube videos have to have the token female on there, who's just all bubbly and I'm so happy to be here, and WWE does this, and AEW is just so great, and stuff like that. Cha. So let's listen to what they had to say about the Max Caster incident. And something here, we'll do this like we did the other video breakdown. I guess we'll call this episode Around the Wrestling Horn, since we're listening and reacting to other people. But and I'm giving my own opinions based on it. But let's take a look here and see what Wrestling Inc. had to say last night about the Max Caster situation.
I went back and watched it after, and it was like, holy shit. Like, every line, first off, this was not like a great flow. This was not something really clever or unexpected. It's like,
okay, dude, you're Glenn Rubenstein. You're the whitest motherfucker, on this panel. Why are you using words like, you would never hear me come on and go, man, his flow won't right. I as a white honky have no idea what the fuck that even means.
Every line had something offensive.
Duh, that's his fucking gimmick, Glenn.
Even their final reference to Julia with the Varsity Blondes, like, this was like somebody watched 8 Mile and was like, I can do that, and then just wrote like the
No, come on. We're still referencing a movie that's over about 20 years old.
Shittiest offensive rap ever.
That's his gimmick. He did his job and did it beautifully.
I feel like it was somebody watching 8 Mile and then being like, oh, you can't say that. I'm going to write 8 Mile. And that's somebody being like Tony Khan trying to write 8 Mile. Listen, I actually didn't have a problem with Max Caster's rap.
Now, this is the part. This is Alfred speaking, and this is the part that really killed me. And Glenn backpedals a lot on this.
I looked at it in the vein of hip hop, and this story has 2 things that I hate more than almost anything in life. Is one, a company capitulating to cancel culture, which I think this is a Twitter-driven story. I heard,
and Glenn. Now, if you go back and watch the video, Glenn just goes, "Okay," and he takes a nod and he looks down like, "I can't believe he's saying this. This is gonna ruin us. This is gonna fucking ruin us. Because heaven forbid we should actually call out these morons on Twitter."
very many correspondence reports that people in the building didn't really seem to mind this. It got the reaction that he thought it would get, and it didn't really become a thing until afterwards when people really got on Twitter and started rallying him up. And it also features people taking hip-hop lines out of context, what I think, in that Max Caster's character is just this. He's a guy who it's not going to hit 1,000 every single time in terms of whether or not it was good, whether or not it was crossing the line, but he's always going to do this. He's just like, this really is a tame version. Even this rap was tame compared to what John Cena was doing week after week after week. And that John Cena character is one of my favorites ever. I just think that this Max Caster character really shouldn't be in AEW.
There it is. A lot of people in the chat, I'm looking at the chat replay for this. It was funny. Cancel culture sucks. AEW is supposed to be about creative freedom. Not anymore. Everything's got to be ran by Tony Khan. Tony Khan. Tony Khan, I got a promo for you, Khan. Please read my promo, Tony Khan. Let me know if I can say it, Tony Khan. Who does that sound like? Goddamn pal.
Been talking about how like who's going to be the first person to leave AEW. I think it should be Max Caster, honestly. Wow. If he can get out right now, like this is a hip hop gimmick in AEW.
If you could go back and watch the video of this, Glenn Rubenstein is just basically he's rolling his eyes, he's looking down like, no, this is not the direction that I wanted this conversation to go.
Those two things do not. AEW is the least hip hop company in wrestling right now, so I don't know.
I mean, that's a good point.
Yes, I don't think it should exist in this company right now. But yes, I get it. I don't think it was his best work. I didn't have a problem with it, but it seems like he does have at least a little bit of heat for what's going on, and I think it's unfortunate, actually, given how talented I think Max Caster really is in the grand scheme.
Somebody goes, that was then, much more PC these days, good or bad. That's the problem. That's the exact problem. That's the problem with cancel culture. We don't need to be PC at all. And it's bad. It's bad. It stifles you creatively because you have to constantly go, how are people going to react to this? How are people going to do this? You shouldn't have to do that. We should, and wrestling is for everyone, they say. Wrestling is for all people. Okay, so you didn't like this. You know, they always use the 3-ring circus analogy. Maybe you don't like the lion tamer, but you'll like the young buck tightrope walkers that are coming out in the middle, in the next segment. If you don't like the circus did get canceled because of the elephants, but anyway. But if you don't like the clowns, you're not going to sit there and go, oh my God, I want my money back. I'm outraged over the clowns. Let's cancel the circus because of the clowns. The clowns offended me. Meh. No, you're going to sit there and deal with the clowns, and then hopefully the lion tamer or the motorcycles who drive around the woman in the big metal ball will come out and excite you next. Somebody here in their chat room, John Cena 2005, lots of stuff like this, towed that line and did what needed to be done. Get him over as a heel. The rap was fine, and these cancel cultural vultures are on the last nerve. Amen. Amen. This is coming from one of their moderators, by the way, in their chat room.
But the context, though, was like that there was like 4 couplets in this, and all of them were offensive. Like,
good. That's his character.
Each one. This wasn't like Eminem's by name.
I love this guy Alfred. Go follow him. This is nasty on Twitter. There you go.
It was like, okay, middle of the road. Now I'm really gonna push it. Now I'm gonna dial it back a little bit. Like, I think the context of this from start to I didn't think it was very good. And I say this as somebody who just listened to the new Yum Yum's Lure, the new EP by the Insane Clown Posse.
Yeah, whoop whoop. Okay, I like the Insane Clown Posse, but comparing what they do to something like this is apples and fucking oranges, dude.
Their night, and
you got the black guy in the middle laughing because they're to them Insane Clown Posse, no offense, but African Americans or people in the hip hop community for years have looked at the Insane Clown Posse and have just totally dissed them and said that's not real rap.
Highly enjoyed it, and I think Max Caster is not very talented. So they're
not talented. He's not very talented. What the fuck, Glenn? This Glenn Rubenstein, or Stein, he just had to get his little dig in. Oh, you guys can take which one. It's cancel culture. I just don't think he's talented. He's not talented.
There you go. Take it for what it's worth.
Well, listen, send your angry tweets to Glenn. No, listen, I get it. I'm not even going to get mad at people for, being offended by it. I completely get it. I just don't like the culture of that. We have to get them away. And that for 1 second, oh my God, this guy said a hip hop lyric. He really means it. Or the idea that they've got to punish him for this when this is the same president who sat idly by when a 50-year-old man got his face legitimately sliced open on national television. It was the first person in Gorilla to hug Nick Gage and say, good job for slicing a man open on national television. It's like, where do we draw the line in terms of what's offensive and what's unacceptable? Because let me tell you something. Would you rather hear an offensive hip hop lyric or get your face sliced open on TV? I'm taking the first one.
Amen. Amen. What's just more offensive to you? The pizza cutter guy, the drug robbing bank steal dealer, the fucking meth head? They put a meth head on the TV, guys. Oh, Joe, he's clean and sober. I don't know that. Look at the guy. You can tell he's a former fucking meth head. They put somebody who looks like an outright hobo on the screen, had him fucking bleed and bust light tubes over, but that's okay. That's fine. We can lose sponsors. We'll just gain a couple more, and Pabst Blue Ribbon, who's right on the same level as that bullshit. But this is offensive. Something that happened on a YouTube show? That's where we draw the line? Oh, because it's in the media, and it's relevant, and it's fucking current. That's where we draw the line? What the fuck? What in the blue fuck? This is why I said last night that if he is indeed suspended without pay, and they donate his pay to a charity like they did with Guevara last year, and they fucking just make him go through sensitivity training, and he's got to pass this before. If I'm him, I'm like, fuck you, I'm leaving. I'm going to the Indies. I can make just as much money there, and I can fucking say whatever I want and do whatever I want and not have to deal with your snowflake powdered pussy. Talking about you, Tony Khan. And if I'm Max Caster, I'm looking at him going, you just had somebody slice their head open somebody's head open with a pizza cutter and bust tubes over their head and fucking, all this bullshit. Your canvas was soaked in blood and glass. That's not offensive? That's not seen as offensive to people? My son winced at it and ran out of the room, guys. He didn't want to watch it. But this happens on a developmental YouTube show, because Tony Khan has said this is their developmental program. And that's offensive? Wake the fuck up, America. Let's continue here.
How about you guys?
Oh, the pizza cutter every day. I love that kind of stuff.
But it's true, though. Everyone has a different definition. I just think it was good. And I'll defend something if I think it's good. I think something is easier to defend if I think that it
Yeah, in other words, Glenn, you're going to take the snowflakes way out because you don't have it's easier to defend the pizza cutter than it is Max Caster. No, it's not. It's easier to defend Max Caster than it is to fucking, well, words can hurt, Joe. So can people cutting themselves open with a pizza cutter. I mean, this just doesn't make no sense.
Has particular artistic merit or is even enjoyable. We were talking about off the air. It's like we've all seen stuff before that we feel is offensive, but sometimes a good joke is a good joke, a good line is a good line. I just thought with this stuff was lazy. That's where I'm coming from.
But I will.
It's not lazy. It's not lazy. It's good writing on the bravo, Max Caster, for fucking paying attention to what's going on, paying attention to what area of the country you're in, and how to get heat. Look at New Jack. New Jack literally got told by Jim Cornette, go out there and piss white people off. You're in the South and you're a black man. Go out there and piss white people off. So what does New Jack do? He goes into the middle of the ring in Tennessee or Kentucky or wherever they're at the time and goes, by the way, OJ, keep up the good work. Too less to worry about. That's funny shit. And I'm a white guy. And that's funny shit right there.
I will say that the thing that though I didn't like it, the rap, it wasn't for me. I wasn't offended, but I was just like, yeah, that didn't hit with me. It was on a dark segment, and dark is supposed to be a YouTube show where they're just highlighting. It's almost like a weird developmental of AEW, and the fact that got so much attention.
And somebody goes, "Oh, the guy did it." Somebody in the chat room goes, "He did it during Fight for the Fallen." So, what does that have to do with anything? And he didn't do it during Fight for Fallen. He did it during Dark.
And it's like, wait a minute, none of you guys are watching AEW Dark. I'm sorry, but you're not. Look at the
Amen.
Numbers that Dark does.
Leave it up to the Latino woman to call people out on their shit. But the one white guy in the fucking room, oh, he's offended. Again, it makes me wonder if it would have been a white dude as a white rapper saying this shit, what would happen? Would the tables be turned? Kind of makes you think.
Compared to Dynamite, you guys saw somebody tweet the clip and then you got offended. You didn't even go to YouTube to watch it. Like, if it would have not gone viral on Twitter, half of the people that complain about it would have not even seen it.
Amen. I'll agree with you on that.
And I think that's part of it too. We were talking about this, Alfred. Think about how many albums that were mediocre at best that sold 1 million more copies because there was a parental advisory sticker on them.
Somebody in their chat room goes, Max Caster is a modern day Retro Cena. Tony Khan is scared. He is scared.
Of course. Right. No, absolutely. And this is a sport of outrage. I'm not for 1 second going to pretend like it's one thing if you don't like it, and I will defend anybody's right to find you. That's a matter of taste. Like, I'm not going to say it was the best in the world. Yeah. So if you didn't like it, that's one thing. But the fact that this guy needs to be removed from television because of a controversial hip-hop lyric, because of his art, like one of my favorite.
Rubenstein totally backpedaling here because the other two don't agree with him when he surely thought that the Latino woman and the black man, if I don't agree with the cancel culture, they'll certainly be in on this, and I think he was surprised when they weren't.
Comics of all time is Dave Chappelle. This guy's got some of the best sexual assault jokes I've ever heard, and they're hilarious.
Again, it's a black comedian. I don't hear them bringing up George Carlin, who practically said the same jokes and spat more truth than any stand-up comedian in history.
Pedophile jokes that are hilarious.
I love me some Dave Chappelle, though. I'm not going to lie.
Because it's in his art. Not for 1 second do I think Dave Chappelle, the famous comedian, is capable of any of this stuff, and that's how I consume Max Caster. So, like, I just don't like the idea of AEW just taking this company-wide stance that, oh, we're gonna edit Max Caster. We're gonna keep him in line. He better not say stuff like that because it's just a lyric, and if it went over your head and it wasn't good and people didn't think it was, a lot of people didn't, then I get that, but not the cancellation of Max Caster.
Yeah, I don't think he should be necessarily suspended. I just think that I think actually if I were Tony Khan, I would be like, dude, this is your gimmick. Like, push a little harder. Now you got people's attention. Show them what you can really.
Okay, so now Glenn Rubenstein is totally backpedaling here, and he goes on from there to basically saying that he should maybe push the envelope even more. So you've changed in a matter of, 15 minutes now? Now that your other two hosts, your two guest hosts, disagree with what you were trying to set up? They shot your shit down, white boy. Again, my personal feelings on all this, did he deserve to fucking be called out and canceled? No. The rap was great. It was funny. It was hilarious. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I just think that, we really need to take a look at, gimmick wrestling. The Young Bucks have said shit on Being the Elite that's far more offensive. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
I don't want a pickle.
What the hell?
I just want to ride my motorcycle.
Man, I'm about to put the pressure button with the winner, man.
And I don't want to die.
Dude, I have no idea what
I
you're
just
doing.
want to ride my motorcycle. Cool.
Last one there's the penis pump.
That's no fair. You're no
Holy cow, I'm totally going so fast. Oh, fuck!
Punk.
Oh my god, I don't know what to do. What do we
Hey,
do?
what the fuck are you kids doing on my fucking lawn? And don't look at me when I'm fucking talking to you.
Help
Get
me,
that kid off my
help.
eyes, you little wankers. Alright, give him the stick. Don't give him the stick.
Do you know my dad?
Oh,
G.I. Joe!
Back here from Pillar to Post. And CM Punk. Couple things on CM Punk. A rumor is, let's take this here from let's go ahead and read you the actual piece here so people can't say where'd you get this from, John White? Alright, let's see here. This is the latest regarding CM Punk making a return to the ring. Fightful Select is reporting that Punk has been training in his own. In addition to training, he has done work for the Star show Heels. So he was training for that show, and then he's also doing some training of his own. According to wrestlers and cast members that have worked with Punk on the show in recent months, he's said to be in good condition, especially when compared to how he was at the end of his WWE run. According to one person, Punk is completely healthy, and another person said he was very good in the ring. A third person says he looked like he hadn't left the business at all. So, there we go. I'm looking at a picture of him and Stephen Amell on the set of the show, and Punk is not exactly his old muscular self, but that's okay. I mean, you know, maybe it's the character that he played on the TV show he didn't need to be. We don't know that. Keeping It 100 podcast had this same British guy on there, and again, I hate to keep going back to what other podcasts are doing and saying, but they're bringing up good points, and I feel like commenting on them. So that's what you're going to get here. And Disco Inferno actually brings up some decent points on that show. So let's listen to what they have to say about this. Is titled "The Real Reason Why CM Punk or Why WWE Did Not Want CM Punk Back." Let's take a listen here, and we'll give our thoughts as we go along.
The other thing to look at all these releases, if you want to cover them in a nutshell. So when Nick Khan goes into his position and what it is, it's different to Vince because he's been given the what is called the fiduciary responsibility to look at all the expenditures that are going out. So when he immediately looked at what was happening over at NXT and WWE, and it totaled up to $112 million that was going out a year, I immediately was told that they're trying to cut this down to $70 million that was going out because that scene is reasonable. So
essentially what they're doing is, for all you NFL fans out there, I'm not an NFL fan, but I can assume that they're setting a salary cap. Imagine that. And a company that hires athletes having a salary cap. At least on the downsides. Now remember, they always have potential to make more. If WWE doesn't fuck them over and say, okay, instead of 10% of the merch, you're only getting 5%. Keep that in mind here.
42. I don't think they've reached the number yet. I don't think they've made $42 million of salary cuts at this moment in time.
No, because we did the math the other night, and if every person in NXT, I think the math was $600,000 is all that they've saved with these 12 NXT cuts.
In addition to that, a lot of these people, when you look at Bray Wyatt sitting out and having no ideas for Braun Strowman, everybody else can be rehired on smaller contracts or can be rehired when they actually have an idea for them. I think we're going to be seeing a lot less of these 3 and 5 year deals at the moment, which a lot of guys have. A load of guys are walking around with these deals. The other thing to point out as well is that 2020 made it a lot easier to fire some guys because some of the bigger guys don't have minimum dates on their contract. I don't think what happened to the last contract, when you're looking at someone like a Rey Mysterio, I don't think he would be coming in with minimum dates because of how difficult it was last time. But there's a load of guys there that have got minimum dates. I believe most of them would have a 120. Last year, Oscar worked 54 dates, and she was the person that worked the most dates. So when nobody fulfilled their minimum requirement, it makes it easier to release people because everybody in some way breached their contract last year, and WWE kept them on.
Now, what he's saying right there, and by the way, the audio issues was on their end, not mine. What he's saying there holds water. Does it hold water morally? How dare they? It was a pandemic. Doesn't matter when the contract's there in black and white and doesn't allow for that. Unless they got COVID, and then with COVID, you're only out for about 2.5 to 3 weeks. I was out for 2 months because it gave me pneumonia. So unless it gave everybody on the roster who had COVID pneumonia, you know. Why is my microphone swaying back and forth like this? Oh, well. So, you know, they have the right contractually. Is it morally and is it a scumbag thing for people to sit there and go, you know, you didn't fulfill your commitment last year? Well, that was because of COVID. We didn't run as many dates. And yes, you could probably dispute that in court if you want to lawyer up and go against Jerry McDevitt and all them. Is it a scumbag thing to do? Yes. Are they within their legal right to do it, though? Yes. It's definitely a double-edged sword there. Again, they're running a business.
So 2020 makes it a lot easier for you to fire people and say we're within our rights to do it. So that's another thing no one's really touched on.
Yeah. Let me ask you 2 questions to see what you think about this. So there's 2 things I keep hearing. A lot of these budget cuts are because he's going to sell the company, which I don't think he will, but I could be wrong. And the second one is that he's letting a lot of these people go knowing that Tony's going to pick them up and he's going to have to deal with all these huge, you know, and also have the problem that there's not going to be enough TV for all these stars that are there. What do you say to those 2 things?
I don't think they're selling the company. I think that if they get the right offer, they'll sell the company. And I think the front runner for that would be NBC Universal. Because
it's not what I heard. Yeah, they have a great relationship with them, but I've heard the front runner is Disney. I heard the front runner is Disney. Do I think they'll sell the company? I did a podcast. I mentioned that a couple days ago. It's very clear that he does not like the way Triple H ran NXT. He sees it as a failure. So Vince, in his mentality that he's shown over the years, is probably sitting there going, well, I don't want the whole entire company to fall into his hands. Shane McMahon doesn't want any part of it. He just got promoted to CEO of some communications company, I think it was. So he's going to try that again. Maybe they do Japanese internet or something that he could fail out of. Stephanie, she's along with Triple H, so she knows that where her loyalties are going to lie if he dies. He's not going to give the company to Linda because Linda's too busy playing politics up there in Washington. So he's going to sell. There's nobody else to give it to. There's nobody else, so he's going to sell. I got a feeling within 5 years. I mean, I'll say before Vince dies. If not, then shortly after, because of all the infighting that would go on as to who would properly run the company. I would not be surprised if that company gets sold within the next 10 years. Whether it be to Disney, whether it be to NBC Universal, but that all leads to what they're about to talk about next year.
Because that's the one that they're in bed with. I think the relationship with Fox is done. I think
Really?
I think 100% is done. When Fox came in and got CM Punk and WWE back together, the idea was that
They didn't get CM Punk and WWE back together. WWE tried to dissuade them many, many times from bringing Punk on to that show. Hey, instead of Punk, you need to have, and they'll talk about this here in a second. That was CM Punk did not sign with WWE. He made that very clear. CM Punk signed with Fox Sports. Now, as far as Renee Young and Paige and Booker T and all those guys, WWE allowed them to sign Fox Sports deals. Had he known that they were going to bring in CM Punk like that, I don't think the ink would have been dry on on Renee Young and everybody's contract with Fox. He wouldn't have let him do it. But Vince was trying to kind of play ball with Fox a little bit and say, okay, yeah, let's treat it like a real sport and have an analyst show afterwards once a week, which I'm sure Vince hated that idea.
He would end up working there in the end. So when Fox reached out to WWE after they'd spoken to Punk and knew that AEW had put money down on the table, WWE then straight up said to Fox, instead of even having a conversation with Punk, they ended up sending them this flow chart, basically explaining that, this is what John Cena has done for our ticket sales, where John Cena has moved a couple of thousand tickets since he was announced at nearly every single arena. They're talking about merchandise sales. From my information, they used Punk. We know that Punk wasn't a big star until 2011, but they are talking to Fox about Punk being there from 2007 and 2014 and not being the same level star as Edge and John Cena. So
he wasn't. In their defense, he wasn't.
So trying to justify the $3 million a year that they're paying Edge as opposed to why they won't pay it to Punk, which is what I believe Tony Khan is paying Punk. So, and WWE trying to...
Again, where does this guy get these figures from, I'll never know, but okay.
Explain to Fox why it wasn't worth it. Fox didn't really buy into this and decided to turn around to WWE and say, whatever you think he's worth, we'll pay the rest. And WWE, then we got the real reason where they turned around to him and said, he's toxic, he's moody, he's bad for the locker room, nobody likes...
So let's take a look at that there. You remember when Sting signed with TNA and Dixie Carter year after year after year, was for those 5-6 years, whatever it was, may have been 10 years. Is Sting going to re-sign with TNA? That was the big gig every year in October after Bound for Glory. Was he going to sign with TNA? Was he going to re-sign for another year with TNA? And we found out later on that it wasn't only Dixie Carter putting up the money, if any money, for Sting. It was Spike TV. Spike TV put the money up to sign Sting. They were putting money into the promotion. So what this guy is basically saying here is that Fox was kind of prepared to do the same thing. Going, hey, we'll add X amount of you tell us what you think is worth. We think he deserves this. You tell us what you're willing to pay of that. We'll pay him the rest added on to his analyst contract that he has with us, and he can wrestle for you guys. Pop a rating, be huge. And the second WWE had a solution and were backed into a corner, they went with the snowflake approach. He's toxic. Nobody wants him in the locker room. He's too, he doesn't want to play ball, blah, 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 which I find horse shit. That nobody would want to, maybe there's a few people there. But the modern locker room would love a chance to work with CM Punk. They would love it. Let's continue here.
Him, nobody wants him here. We don't want him in our locker room. We don't want to deal with CM Punk. So that's when...
No, you don't want to deal with CM Punk, Vince. Or Khan or Barrios or whoever may have been there at the time. You guys, Laurinaitis, you don't want to deal with CM Punk.
After pissing Fox around and Fox coming back to them and saying, we'll pay the rest of the money to have him on SmackDown, they then turn around and said, we just don't want him backstage. So
how would Fox know how popular Punk was? That's pretty weird.
You can look at the WWE television and tell.
They wanted him as part of the deal.
They got to have some type of marks there for wrestling if they're paying him $200 million a year in rights fees.
The guy that brokered the whole deal, it was Nick Khan that brokered the deal, but the guy who works for Fox is a mark, and he is a wrestling fan, and he looked at the markets. The whole deal was done on the premise that the West Coast was underperforming, which is why we were supposed to have 2 West Coast WrestleManias at 37 and 38. Because there's been a massive dip in Hispanic viewership, and the WWE and Fox felt like they could bring it back on the West Coast because that was a massive.
Did they?
No, they haven't, because obviously the pandemic is hit and they don't know where they're at with everything. But looking at what their numbers were doing, they felt like there was a massive hole that the WWE were not exploiting and that they could.
Can you imagine if they had CM Punk during the pandemic? Now, part of me with CM Punk and the way he thinks, I mean, I don't know exactly what's going to go on inside the guy's head. I can't really speak for him, but I could speculate, which I know. Mark's on the internet speculating. I know Punk. I know, but I'm going to speculate here, my friend. Like he's my friend, like I know the guy. But anyway, I could totally imagine CM Punk going, fucking pandemic, I'm not working during that shit. I'm not going to live in your damn Orlando bubble. Goodbye, I'm going back home. So, again, I kind of like to attack everything from all angles.
But obviously, all of these plans have not come into play. The number's holding at around 2 million, which is nowhere near what it was supposed to be. But I think they still going to go.
I guarantee you, Fox literally, obviously they did not look at the numbers on cable and see that they were only pulling in about 1.5 to 2 million per week on USA. And they seriously thought that number was going to go up just because they jumped networks. Fox didn't do their research properly. This guy, this fan, whoever brokered the deal with Fox Sports for this, clearly had high hopes. And everybody said, it's not going to work. It's not going to work because you still got the crazy grandpa booking it. And as long as the crazy grandpa is living and booking, nobody's coming back. That 2 million is the hardcores that will watch anything with wrestling in the title.
Got some leeway through Fox through this over the next couple of years. When they made that full commitment to NBC, when they went over to Peacock, that really pissed off Fox. The Punk thing has pissed off Fox. The fact that WWE already know that the next contract, the money is going to be in streaming services because.
Now, let's before he goes into the streaming service deal, he's right. I mean, I've heard several things saying the Peacock thing has pissed off Fox because here it is, you're plugging a pay-per-view that is going to be airing solely on our competition's streaming service. Fox is owned by Disney. NBC is owned by NBC Universal. They're competitors. Fox does not like the fact that Peacock is being said all over their network, all over their damn show every Friday night, all over their channel. They don't like the fact that the logo is being used. And they're, like I said, they're pissed off about the CM Punk deal. Because CM Punk wasn't even on that show very much before it got canceled due to the pandemic. I think he was maybe on there maybe 5 or 6 times, and that was it. Not, if that.
Apple and Prime are desperate to get on the map with live sports, with live events. That's what Prime and Apple are trying to do. So they know they can get a ridiculous deal of Amazon Prime or Apple.
They could have gotten that this time around. There was rumors that SmackDown was going to go to one of those streaming services. And it hasn't. I've said it again on the AEW side of things. Why AEW, why episodes of Dynamite are not on HBO Max right now is beyond me.
when they next renew, especially Apple. Apple are absolutely desperate to get involved in live streaming. So I think that's where the new home will be.
And here's the other thing, bro. When Punk does show up in AEW, they're really gonna look even worse. You know what I'm saying? Because he's gonna melt that place.
What do you think? If you were looking at a number, do you think they clear 1.5 with Punk there?
Oh, that's a tough question. If they were asking me this, let's hear what they have to say first. Then I'll chip in.
Do you think they actually beat Raw that week?
Maybe.
Wow, that's a good question. I think so. I think the interest is going to be at an all-time high.
I don't know. Here's why.
What is the all-time high is 1.5, right? So
yeah,
I don't know.
1.4 is their high.
Right.
That was because the very first show was 1.4. But here's the thing: he can get to 1.4. But my whole thing is like they recently had a surge. Like a 3-week thing in rating. Like it's tapered off, but it has actually gone down 2 weeks in a row. Right. So, and like the one thing that we know is that like you can get spikes, but the spike is like the COVID. It just reaches a point, and then the numbers come back down and stuff. But I don't know if you're talking 30% of your audience of the people like you're going to have a 30% spike in ratings because of Punk. I don't see that.
Well, I think I'll tell you why. Only because the curiosity factor. You may have WWE people that are curious to see, and the AEW and the word's going to get around, and everybody's going to want to see this guy show up in Chicago. What the he's going to say or do? I think there's kind of an excitement behind that.
Now, they were talking about Apple and everything like that. I would not buy Apple TV for wrestling. I'm sorry. I will not buy another Apple product because every Apple product I've ever touched is just trash to me. Not that Microsoft or anybody else is any better, but Apple is what you buy old people who like shit dumbed down. And apparently a lot of people in Hollywood like Apple for their editing programs and stuff like that. But I won't touch it. I will not buy Apple TV, a company who has more money held overseas than God. I won't touch it. I won't give them any more.
I think they're gonna do maybe 1.5. I don't know.
Let me say this real quick. Just that there's guys like me who watched when Punk was on top and would watch pay-per-views with a group of friends. Most of that group of friends doesn't watch AEW. But if Punk's gonna come out, or I know it, or I suspect it, I'll text them and say, hey, I think Punk's joining AEW. And a few are going to watch us to see. But I'm not the only one that's going to do that. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be texting their lapsed fan friends and going, hey, Punk and Brian both.
So, in theory, the guy's right. This guy, Joe, I think his name is on the podcast. They're kind of like their moderator or producer. He's right. And I'm curious to know why his friends don't watch AEW. But I do think, and I'm not going to play any more of the clip because they just kind of babble on there. I do think that a lot of people, if they're smart, then either this week on Dynamite or this week on Rampage or even next week on Dynamite, they need to go ahead and spill the beans. It's the worst kept secret in the pro wrestling world right now. They need to spill the beans and say, hey, the best in the world is coming. Even if you just show like a vignette of him in the ring, training a little bit. They need to go ahead and spill the beans if they want to beat Raw. And if they beat Raw in the ratings, it's maybe a 1 or 2 week gig. And then I don't have much faith here, but unless Tony Khan really gets his shit together and gets the mojo working, it's going to be a 1 or 2 week deal, and then they're going to fall flat. Who knows? I mean, people forget they're airing at a 10 p.m. time slot. If they choose to debut Punk at that Rampage, it's a 10 p.m. slot on a Friday night. It's not a good time slot, man. It's not a good time slot. But if you announce it ahead of time, CM Punk is coming in. And if you plug that shit, I will tell you right now, TNT does do a good job plugging AEW. Because there's not a commercial break that TNT doesn't take during the day that does not plug AEW in some ways. They're plugging them at least once or twice an hour, running ads for it. TNT's behind him. TNT wants him to do good. But what I think TNT also said a couple months back is they don't want surprises. Because they want to get ratings. I'm sure they were probably pissed off at the Malachi Black thing. If I'm a network executive, I'm like, damn it, man, you just missed an opportunity by not plugging this guy. You could have aired vignettes for weeks and then picked when he was going to show up. That way you pop 3 or 4 weeks worth of ratings because people are going, is this going to be the week? Is this going to be the week? So I think that, they need to go ahead and push the button on Punk this week, tonight, if at all possible. What do they have for slated for Dynamite tonight, I wonder? Hold on, let me find this out. AEW Dynamite preview. Here we go. Death Before Dishonor has been moved to Philly. We all knew that was going to kind of happen when they moved it away from Florida due to COVID. Good on them for doing it, because you couldn't pay me to go to Florida right now. So they got Chris Jericho versus Wardlow with MJF with a fourth labor. Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks versus Dante Martin and Matt and Mike Sydal. Impact Wrestling, and I say because who the fuck are the Sydal brothers are rarely seen. Dante Martin, very rarely seen. They're seen if you watch them on Dark. Impact Tag Team Championship match, the Good Brothers versus the Dark Order and Evil Uno. That is an Impact title shot for them. So it's the Good Brothers versus Evil Uno and Stu Grayson. They're not predictable. If they win the Impact Tag Team titles and show up on Impact, I think it would be a good thing for Impact, but I doubt it. Nyla Rose versus Chris Statlander. I love me some Chris Statlander, but goddamn. Daniel Garcia versus Darby Allin. Dan Lambert of American Top Team has promised to appear with backups. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 segments on a 2-hour show. Still got a lot of time to fill there. If I'm them, I do like they did last week. I kick off the show with Jericho and Wardlow, or I kick off the show with Omega and the Bucks. Or you can even kick off the show if you want to do it hot. You kick off the show with a tag team title switch there for Impact. But they need to go ahead and announce CM Punk. As much as I love a good surprise, from a ratings perspective, they're all about the ratings. They're all about improving that bottom line. They need to go ahead and put that out there tonight. That's going to do it for me here today, folks. I want to thank you guys all for listening here. And, it's funny, the Mario Paint thing. You catch the Mario Paint thing slowing down because it can't keep up with the shit that he's put in there. That's awesome. The ECW theme song. We're going to end it there. You've just been taken from pillar to post. I'm Joe White. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. We'll see you down the road.